All right, what's up, everybody? I have a bit of a treat for you. Let me screen share something. All right. You guys see what I'm showing you?
Oh, science.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, the other day, Sam decided to put up a hangout responding to me and some of the things that I've been saying. Note this title right over here, citation bluffing. You guys have heard me talk about citation bluffing a lot, to where a lot of atheists and evolutionists, they come into rooms and they just give you a whole bunch of links that they just quickly Googled on spot. They don't read it, and it doesn't have anything to do to prove the things that they're talking about. MM Artis is somebody famous for being guilty of exactly this, where he will link you articles and quickly Google some information that might have, what you're talking about in the title or what's inside of the description or abstract. But he never reads it, and he never goes through the information, or if he does, he's dishonest about it. It's on those rare occasions that he will actually read it, and it doesn't have anything to do with the topic. So Sam has talked about citation bluffing here, and in this whole video, I mean, he pretty much doesn't get into any details refuting what Tompkins has said. A lot of condescending remarks like, well, Tompkins doesn't understand, he's not doing the work, and blah blah blah, the mantra of a YouTube atheist. But underneath here, you see me respond to him, and I gave him my criticisms of what I seen thus far, and I asked him, or told him, that if you're going to talk about a telomere fusion, you're going to have to actually give me an article to prove a telomere fusion, not something that happens in cancerous cells, not something like myself and what Tompkins has criticized, where it's dangerous for a living organism. An actual telomere fusion that is like what we're observing inside of chromosome 2. And he tells me right over here, I linked to you an article that calls it a telomere fusion. No, it's in the title, right, guys? So it must be the case. He linked me an article that calls it a telomere fusion. And if the article shows the exact fusion, talks about it, references the papers, and calls it a telomere fusion, and shows the evidence, what should I conclude? Now here's the article that he gives me after I asked him for it. He linked me it right over here. Yeah, can you guys see what I'm showing you?
Yep.
This article right over here, that is the one that he was talking about with the telomere fusion, is actually from 1991. This article right here is one of the original articles about the chromosome 2 fusion site, the supposed chromosome 2 fusion site. So what he basically did right here was he gave me one of the early original findings about the chromosome 2 fusion sites, the original claims, and is using it as a response to the criticisms. That's what he's doing right now. He's using the original article as a response to the criticisms offered. Imagine if I were to sit over here and make a claim to you guys, right? And there was new information provided that discredited it. Would it be good enough for me to go back to the original claims and use my claims for an article, just repeat my claims? No, but this is what he did. He gave me the original claim as a response to prove this telomere fusion. And one of the things that we need to pay very close attention to is that the supposed telomeric-like sequences that are talked about, what's his name? I forget. Tompkins talked about in the video that I just showed you. There are telomeric-like sequences found all over the genome. So you can't sit over here and say, well, there are telomeric-like sequences, so therefore evolution was behind it. What do you guys got to say on it before we move on? Because there's a lot for me to touch on.
Well, I would first say that clearly this is a guy that didn't know. So he did a quick Google search, read a few lines on the first or second article that he finds, and copies and pastes it as a evidence or a proof of evidence to you.
Exactly.
Had if he really known he wouldn't have used that article.
Exactly. That's exactly the point. He gave me a link, not knowing that that link that he gave me from 1991 is one of the original claims that's actually being criticized right now. So the fact that he did this either indicates to me that he was being dishonest, thinking that I wasn't going to notice it, or he doesn't really know what the original claims were or where they came from.
Yeah, I would agree. He did a quick look, a quick search, and came up with that particular article. And he that's the Achilles heel. He made a very big mistake.
So we got Tommy in here, and Neil, they just joined as well. What do you guys have to think about that? Because I think that that's just hilarious. Remember, guys, inside of the title, he's talking about citation bluffing. And he just citation bluffed me for the source that I was asking for, the core evidence that was going to prove his claim. He was expecting me to take him seriously because it basically said telomere fusion. And when we looked at the article, it was nothing more than a bluff. It was actually the original claim that we are actually criticizing right now based on the new information available.
Yeah. I went back and watched that video again. It's been a while since I've seen it, but Tompkins says, he says, I think I got pretty close to the quote, but maybe you went over this, but he says if the fusion site was real, it would be the first documented instance of telomere-telomere fusion ever occurring in nature. And he qualified that later, that they do happen in cancer situations, you know, which would hardly be a good scenario. So yeah, I think the challenge is a good one to Sam, so what you're saying is he gave you a bogus paper or had nothing to do with that?
What I'm saying is that this is an old paper from 1991. There's a lot of new information that's accumulated since then, and we were looking for a response or a refutation of the criticisms being directed to these old claims, and how he went about presenting new information or getting around this new information that discredits these old articles. He reverted by going back to the old article.
Yeah.
And the fact that he did that, it indicates to us that he either didn't know or doesn't know what the original claims were or where they came from, or that he was expecting us to not notice it and he was being dishonest.
Yeah, that's what I kept asking the evolutionists the other night in the hangout, was anywhere where someone actually addressed the new claims of Tompkins, you know, because they've come out here in the last couple of years, 2013 or thereabouts, or 14. But anyway, he's reiterated them lately in at least one video. And so what was that with Ian Juby? And so what I was asking for is, and he made a lot of claims, made a lot of statements in that video. So I wanted to see any evolutionist out there of high-profile evolutionist who would put their reputation on the line. I didn't want any internet hack or some just random blogger coming up with a critique or refutation of Tompkins. I wanted someone who has stature, who would actually go out and point by point knock down what Tompkins said. And they did exactly what you just described, which is go back to some of Ken Miller's old statements and use those as a substitute for, you know, it didn't at all.
Exactly. You know, I got something else that's going to be a little bit of a treat as well. I might as well share this now. I remember what the claims are actually of Tompkins. People keep on talking about, well, why doesn't the gene line up? Can you guys see what I'm screen sharing? People keep on talking about why doesn't the gene line up? Why is the DDXL11L2 like all the way over here, and where the fusion site is right over here? Because that transcription factor binding region crosses over the section inside of the DXL11L2 Did I say that right? Well, it's actually up here on the top, DDX11L2. Inside of that supposed fusion site, that's actually where you see some of the that gene. That's actually where you see the site actually located. But where you see the first intron is actually where you see the binding region as well. That's because it's crossing over the entire gene. So this is the reason why when you're finding that DDX11L2 gene all the way over here, it's still part of that fusion site because it starts at the first intron. So this is what he's talking about that transcription factor binding region. It crosses over the fusion site. Mm-hmm. And some of the what's it called? Some of the I forget what it's called. The sequences, the telomeric sequences that you're finding over here that are supposed to be part of the fusion events that's being claimed. It's showing evidence of another telomere. These are so degraded to the point to where they're not even noticeable or concluding a second telomere. I mean, like I was talking about before, if you only have 40 sequences, you can't really say that it used to be a telomere if you need about 2,000 or 3,000. So.
Well, that was the point of contention, I think, at the beginning. Well, not the beginning, but Miller originally claimed that the fusion site was 1,300 bases away from the gene, and then Tompkins then said that he sent Miller the paper, and I guess they had an exchange, and he accused Miller of not reading the paper. And then evidently Ken Miller ultimately agreed with Tompkins that it happened close to the first first intron, or is in the first intron. So I guess that is what I also asked, the evolutionist, if there's anybody out there who will actually refute that. Is someone going to come out there and say now, yes, no, sure enough, Tompkins is wrong, it's actually 1,300 bases away, or are they actually admitting now that it is in the first intron? So I can't get any sort of response, or I can't find anything on the internet addressing any of this at all, which is suspicious to me. That no evolutionist, high-profile evolutionist, will actually stick his neck out, put his reputation on the line, and go toe-to-toe about this issue. So that tells me that Tompkins is probably right, or they would come down on him like like crazy, like dive bombers. And there were other problems with it too that he brought up.
Who would you say, Tommy, is an expert or somebody that is an evolutionist at the level you would like to see tackle this?
Well, I mean, any peer-reviewed paper would work. I say any, but even someone like even Ken Miller could, but I would think it would be something where you could theoretically have hundreds of people come out of the woodworks, or various university professors who are actually bench scientists who would actually put their reputation on the line and actually present the science that refutes. I mean, anybody could do that.
You guys hear me okay?
Yeah. You're back, brother. So you would say then that Fiona and Jade don't qualify?
Well, I wouldn't consider, they're both Jade, no. Fiona, I mean, obviously Fiona's an ideologue, and she's in the middle of a big debate here, and she's got nothing to lose. She's retired, I guess. But I would like to see somebody who actually has a job to protect, a reputation to uphold, a paycheck to protect. Someone who's accountable to their peers, someone who's got a professional thing out there that they have to protect. So yeah, someone like that.
Yeah, I'd say absolutely not. I'd say not Jade, not Fiona, not Sam. There is nobody in our community that even has anywhere near the level of credentials and scientific work that Tompkins has put into this. Not even Ken Miller. Ken Miller, he's up there. He knows a lot about these topics, but I don't even believe he's a geneticist.
Well, did you see my exchange with her today, Tommy?
With who?
With Fiona.
No, I didn't.
Oh, okay. Well, she's exposed somewhat of her career because you know that she left her posts. She claims she left it due to illnesses.
Mm-hmm.
I could take a stab at what those illnesses are, but I'm gonna try to stay Christian. But she did divulge openly that she was in the study of potatoes.
Okay.
This is what she studied. I don't know just exactly, how you get that job. I know that in the Army, if you mess up, you end up in the potato picking or the cleaning or peeling of potatoes. I know that potato farmers worldwide are not really considered to be the greatest of farmers. Like, nobody puts them up on a pedestal. So she was quite proud in claiming today that in her field of science that she was a potato farmer.
All right. Well,
so
good for her.
Is she qualifying?
Well, I mean, I agree with True. I mean, just she's not going to have the credentials and the capacity to answer this, and obviously she is, like I said, right in the middle of this. She's a massive ideologue, and I'm looking for a neutral person who will actually put their reputation on the line.
Well, let me say this. Like Sam was getting on to Tompkins' case because he worked with Flowers, I believe, before he got his PhD in genetics, right? Actually, he mixed that up. He said something on the order, well, he's a geneticist on plants. I don't know why he would say something like that, but that's not what the case is. I would say that that it wouldn't bother me if Fiona, she worked with plants or fish or anything like that. I think that the difference is that Tompkins has researched and dealt with the entire chimp genome, and he's attempting to do the same exact work that he did on the chimp genome on humans as well. He has put far more work into this than Fiona has or Sam has or anybody in our little community. This guy's published over 53 or 56 articles before he got involved with these creationist organizations. Mainstream peer-reviewed articles, and afterwards he's published another 17 with these creationist organizations, peer-reviewed. So, I mean, if we got Sam that's published one article in bioinformatics, and Fiona, I mean, I believe she's published a couple there, not even relating into the field of genetics, well, I can't say that, even though they are educated people, that they have any authority or even level of understanding like Tompkins does. I think that's the point. And I'm not going to sit over and say that I'm going to throw away their opinions or like they don't have anything to offer, because they obviously have more to offer the table than most other people do. But I think that what we're looking for is more than what we've been seeing. For example, you cannot mix up a Robertsonian translocation and say that is evidence for a telomere fusion if that's only involving two centromeres that are within close proximity. If your one is going to say that this also includes a telomere fusion, then you have to give an example of a telomere fusion like we're seeing here. If that's never been seen, if no one even knows if that can actually happen, you can't say that this also applies in the same way. And so when she presents it that way, it's almost as if she's being dishonest. Same thing like what Sam's doing right now. If we're looking for a refutation to discredit these criticisms or this new information that is showing that these earlier claims are invalid, you cannot resort to going back to the earlier claims. And if you're going back to the earlier claims not knowing that those earlier claims, this is where it's all originating from, well then how am I supposed to take your criticism seriously? And I think that's what the problem is. If they don't even understand why you're seeing the DDX11L2 located 1,300 bases over here, and why it crosses over this fusion, this transcription fusion binding region crosses over, why you're seeing that. I mean, how can they even be taken seriously when talking about the fusion site? They're still talking about the fusion site being located in the middle of the chromosome. It's not located there at all. That's not where the fusion site is actually located. That's old information. We know that the fusion site is not located there. So it's just, they've been doing horrible. They've just been messing everything up to the point to where these people who are supposed to be the best that they've got to offer on the other side of the debate are not doing a good job at all. They're doing horrible, and it's almost coming off as just being downright dishonest, or I mean ignorant. You can interpret it whatever way you wish.
Did you catch Ken Miller's statement on the video where he stated basically that, and I'm paraphrasing, but if this fusion event didn't happen, then common descent or evolution is wrong and didn't happen. Then the chimp human common ancestors didn't exist. I'm flubbing it up, but something along those lines. That pretty much, like I was saying, or we were talking about the other night, how creationists, this isn't. I don't see it as being terribly destructive either way. I mean, I think there would be a couple different explanations, but if it was a fusion event, but the evolutionists are absolutely married to this, and so they don't have any choice but to go down kicking and screaming with this, and so they're going to grab onto this with all of their might and all of their strength, and so I don't see how they can get out of it.
Exactly, and that's the reason why I think that we should milk this for what it's worth, because they're not going to shut up about it, and the fact that they're not going to shut up about it is going to, as they continue to talk about this, I think what's going to happen is that more people, I think Tommy just fell out, I think that more people are going to be coming in and seeing how wrong these guys are. I think that that's what's going to end up happening. So, yeah, I mean, of course, I don't think that they're going to give up. I don't think that they're going to stop. Of course, they can't stop, because this is what it's being claimed as the most best, evidence for human evolution. Is actually one of the strongest refutations of evolution. The fact that chromosome 2 fusion site is not a fusion site, and you're finding sequences there that don't belong to any great apes at all. That 100% discredits the notion that we have evolved from other apes. So of course they're not going to let this go. If there's no fusion event, if the two chromosomes did not come together, then that means that we don't share a common ancestor with the apes, and they can't let that go. They're going to continue to talk about that.
And I think that's why they're not. That's why what we're just talking about, why they're not addressing it, and why none of the evolutionist community or Darwinist community, whatever you call it, they're not addressing it, because I think they're hamstrung. You don't talk about what, if you're an ideologue, you're not going to talk about what is contrary evidence. Yeah, go ahead, Neil, if you had something to say.
So I've seen the videos and the information that you guys have been putting up lately. A lot of anti-evolutionists, creationist scientists, if that's what you want to call them, have taken up this issue recently, from what I've heard, within like the last couple of days, and it is something that they have been talking about. Is that true?
I'm sorry. Can you repeat what you just said, please?
Okay. From what I've heard, is there's a bunch of anti-evolutionist, creationist scientists, whatever, creationists that don't believe in evolutionists that are considered scientists, that have been talking about this issue recently within the last week or couple of days, or however long this issue has been going on. I have heard rumors about it, and I've seen some videos. I'm going to try to find some. But yeah, I've actually heard the guy in question that they were talking about, they keep trying to say that this guy is wrong. I forgot his last name. What is it?
Miller?
Miller. No, it's not Miller. It's
Tompkins?
Tompkins?
Tompkins. There you go. So they keep trying to come up with the stuff. Now I heard a recent thing from Tompkins that somebody put up. Maybe it's old. I'm not sure, but they with Ian Juby. Was that a recent one? Or?
Yeah, it's a few months old, I think.
Yeah, but I mean, this is an issue that, even though it's a few months old, I mean, this is something that they're bringing up. This isn't. You see what I'm saying? This has already been brought up. They're trying to bring it up again with new papers by somebody that refused, like you said, Tommy. Remember your comment that you said they're trying to bring up the same issue again with new papers that some evolutionists brought up to refute some creationists who had published papers on it. So my whole point is, refuting creationism or creationists is not a proof of evolution. You see, I think that's where they're trying to say that refuting Tompkins is proving that evolution is true.
Right. Well, I mean, even if this is a fusion site, it certainly wouldn't prove evolution is true. It may jive with their evolutionary assumptions, or they could maybe make that case, but that wouldn't necessarily prove anything. I mean, because after all, it would have happened within the human lineage, and there could be a variety of reasons why it happened. Maybe there was an adaptive, assuming it happened, maybe there was an adaptive function for it. Just like, Neo, you've done a little bit of research or reading about the retroviruses, and that how the evolutionists used to claim that those were just random events that happened for no particular reason, but now we know that a lot of those events actually serve a purpose and were selected for. And so, I'm not making that case for the fusionist site, but that's why I was saying earlier that creationists, the whole ball of wax is not necessarily in it for us. It's just, I think Drew and I are interested in the truth. As most creationists are, we want to know the truth on the matter, if it is or if it isn't. And evolutionists seem like they don't really want the truth. They want whatever they can come across, or whatever facts or whatever that they can use to fool as many people or convince as many people as possible that evolution is true. That's what they want. They don't really, are not so much, it seems to me, interested in the truth. They're just interested in what can be convincing.
Exactly. What they do is they sit back and they listen to what we say, but they don't really listen to what we say. They listen to little keywords or little points that we say, and they zero in on that and they attack it rather than paying attention to the context of what everything that's being said. Like, for example, that video that I shared just recently. Yeah, that's a very good video. Tompkins was talking about some things that I didn't know about before. I mean, a lot of the things that he was talking about were things that I looked into before. But when he was talking about the long non-coding RNAs and how dangerous it would be to screw around with something like that, that's something to pay attention to. And it seemed like not one evolutionist, not one person that was listening paid any attention to that at all. The reaction was just, oh, well, he's wrong. It is a fusion site. The fusion site is located all the way over here. It doesn't seem to align right. I mean, if they would have been paying attention to begin with, they would understand why the fusion site is found 1,300 bases away. And what we're talking about it over this. I mean, you guys have been hearing me talk about it for the last couple of days. The transcription factor binding region. I've been talking about this for a long time, talking about this control rates of RNA to DNA. I mean, it's just for days and days and days, but they didn't pay attention to that, and still they're lost. They're just focusing on, well, I see the DX211L DX what was it, DDXL 11L2. I don't remember. I'm sorry, guys. This is off the top of my head, but they see that gene right over there, and it's located 1,300 bases away, and they don't understand where everything is starting on the first intron and how it's crossing over. And it's a shame, because if they would really pay attention to this, if they would really listen to what we're saying rather than running at the mouth in other hangouts, they would have, I think, a solid case that would show why the evolution of man did not happen. And yeah, I mean, I don't really. There's really not much to say about that other than that. I mean, we have solid proof here that we didn't evolve for man, and a lot of really good information that could be paid attention to, but it's not even being touched on. They're not even listening to it.
Well, I'd just like to say one more thing about what I said a second ago, how creationists aren't as married into this as the evolutionists are. You know, even if it was a fusion site, they still have all kinds of other problems, such as, I mean, they can't even get, after, what, 50,000 or 40,000 generations, they can't even get a bacteria to evolve into a different kind of bacteria, much less can they show a certain animal having a pathway or evolving into a different kind of animal. I mean, think about, not to change the subject, but 40 or 50,000 generations with a bacteria, and all they can come up with is a couple gene duplications, and that's pretty much it, a promoter duplication, and no new species, no new information, no new gene, no new promoter, no new nothing, and that's their big evidence for evolution. That's supposed to convince everybody of this grand sweep of common descent. That is it, and that's the extent of what they have to offer, which is complete crap. You know, that if they honestly think we're that stupid, then I think they got another thing coming. And this stuff with the fusion event, it's interesting, and I like reading about it, like talking about it, like debating it. But ultimately, it's just it's kind of a way of, it's almost a distraction from the reality that they don't have jack squat when it comes to a realistic or a real scientific way for organisms to actually change into something else.
Yeah, it's basically like what might be, maybe could have happened, what may appear to show something, but they don't have any real observable evidence, and there's no way they can prove that it's any kind of observable evidence at all.
No, I mean, they've trumpeted for decades about how bacteria have proven Darwinian or whatever evolution, but even the small changes that they have accomplished and seen in the lab are usually, they're either degenerative or neutral, or sideways sort of moves that don't involve the activation or the generation of new information or the arrival of any new innovation. No new cellular components, no new motors or anything else. It's just all basically some very small stuff that doesn't involve anything new, and that's the big thing. I mean, you've got to have evolution going the right way, which is uphill. It's got to create stuff over time, and they can't show it. I mean, that's really the big news in all of this, is that nature seems to be going the wrong direction. It seems to be degenerating. Things get deleted, things die, things get sick, things break down, things get broken, and sure enough, some of these events that happen because of brokenness or because of deletions, some of them will confer a fitness advantage, but ultimately it's going the wrong way, and ultimately nothing new gets created, and they don't have an actual legitimate creator.
That's actually 100% true. I mean, when you look at a lot of these articles or what's really happening in biology, it seems like things are degrading almost. What it seems like is that everything was wounded up at the beginning, and then everything is slowly deteriorating and just coming apart at the seams, and it's because things are breaking down. Life didn't start from something that was pretty much just inanimate substances and then slowly led to an established system. It seems like at the start there was an established system, and the repeated copying of the genetic code and passing on of information has caused so many mistakes and mutations to where life is pretty much having a lot of problems, and you can see that all over the place with the birth defects and so on, especially in humans. I mean, I think that humans have more genetic defects than any other living organism as far as we're aware of.
I just get a kick out of these people yelling and screaming and there's been a lot of that lately, about how evolution is a fact, blah, blah, blah. You know, things change. Yeah, but again, like you said, it's all going the wrong way. Their changes aren't what the kind of changes they actually need, and they know it. You know, they need somehow for accidental events, copying errors, whatever you want to call them, mindless accidents, mindless randomness, to somehow generate innovations, biological innovations, anatomy, physiology, parts, whatever you want to call them, however everything got here, how all this stuff got here. They've got to figure out a way biologically for it to happen. But the reality is none of biology actually has an explanation, not a legitimate one anyway. It's all in the realm of theory, which to me amounts to a bunch of crap, because it's just based on their worldview of naturalism, that God didn't do it, nature did it, and that's basically their religion, is nature did it. So, you know, things change, but that's like, you know, bank accounts go down because of withdrawals, but you can't build a bank account by withdrawing money constantly. You've got to have additions, and that's what they don't have.
Well, honestly, I think that a lot of people, a lot of scientists that have published articles for evolution, they fight any information that discredits or is against evolution, because I think that a lot of them, they probably feel like, you know, all of their hard work was for nothing. You know, you see a lot of these articles, they reference evolution a lot. They don't ever really prove common descent, but they get passed through, I think, personally, because there might be new data that's found, and evolution is pretty much labeled on it, you know, put on it, and it's okay, well, it's passing through. But I think that what's actually happening is that no, they don't want their lives to be based on a lie. They don't want to be living a lie, or to find out that, well, okay, well, evolution isn't true. All of this work that I've been putting into this theory, it's not true. The reason why I left my beliefs and the reason why I sought this direction, this career, was just, it's based on a lie. This is wrong. I think that's part of the problem. That's not the reason why a lot of, you know, why you see different people believing in evolution. But I think that is a big problem, to where people, they don't really accept the new information, because, I mean, just like this, the information is right up in people's face. I think that this is not a fusion event. I mean, when you were listening to even what Tompkins was saying in the last video that I showed, look at some of the sources that he was showing in his articles. He was talking about a lot of important things, like, for example, the telomeric sequences being found all over the genome. If you're finding telomeric sequences all over the genome, or telomeric-like sequences all over the genome, then how are you just going to be able to distinguish where this fusion site is, right? I mean, if you're finding telomeric sequences all over the genome, and on top of that, if you're finding something as important as what he was mentioning about long non-coding RNAs, and you were to knock that out, and something extremely dangerous were to happen to, like cancers, you can't just sit over here and say, well, it was a fusion event, or the coming together of two chromosomes was helping to produce something like this by the telomeres, because nothing has ever been proven to make something like that happen to begin with. There's like, from which direction do we want to look at this from? The fact that the supposed fusion site has a transcription factor binding region across that, or the fact that there's the telomeric sequences are degenerate to the point to where they almost don't exist, or the fact that if you right where this around where this fusion site is, that you're finding these long non-coding RNAs, and so I mean, it seems like there's nothing benefiting them. There's like nothing in this direction supporting what they're saying, and it's just
Did you happen to mention the? And I'm looking. I wrote some notes down from this one video I watched with Tompkins, but he says at the fusion site there should be many telomere site repeats, and he says, but at the fusion site there's 35 to the left and 150 to the right. He said there should be 50,000 or so, and he said even the evolutionists, or the scientists, he didn't say evolutionists, even the scientists who wrote a paper on that admitted or questioned why there would be such degeneration at that particular site after even only 6 million years, that they were surprised if a fusion actually did happen there should be a lot more of those repeats.
Let me ask you, brother, something. What do you say to those who be like, well, they want people to disprove evolution, or at least they would want people to disprove evolution, and if they did that, they'd be very wealthy people, and
or dead.
Like,
yeah, they say that a lot. You know, how we're going to win our Nobel Prize, and that's a bunch of baloney. That's like I don't know. It's political, so it'd be much like a Democrat offering to crown a Republican if they showed the Democratic positions to be wrong. I mean, it's silly. They want nothing. They want nothing to do with the creationist paradigm or that worldview. They're actively fighting against it. So no matter what the evidence actually shows.
Well, anybody can see the bias. I mean, and it's very clear. It's up in everybody's face. You guys remember the video the news article that I was showing before about how the article was retracted that was published by some men in Asia because it referenced the creator being behind it and the evidence of what was it the mechanics of the hand, how they would they seem to imply or indicate that a creator may have been behind them. Mm-hmm. The people who read the article, that got a lot of hostility, just like we get here online from the people in our communities. A lot of anger, a lot of hostility, the same type of wording, and that caused them to retract the article, to take the article away, and to possibly get it rewritten. I haven't checked on it yet. They said that they were going to have it rewritten because of the language being used that the people who were reading it felt was improper. So, I mean, think about that for a second. Before an article gets published, when it's going through peer-reviewed, it is criticized by the experts. The experts, after they criticized that article and they evaluated it and looked at the information, they concluded that it was obviously sufficient and correct enough to pass through. It seemed like new information or good information to be passed on. But the peer pressure that was being directed to them from the community of scientists and people who were watching it, they did not like the wording that it referenced a creator, and they got it removed. Look at the same thing that happened a while ago, for example, with the Smithsonian and Stephen C. Meyer, his article that got removed. Just think about that happening and the average person not paying attention to how many times that actually happens. How many times has that happened that we haven't paid attention to? So I mean, that we haven't heard of yet. So
that
I mean,
slipped through the cracks.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like we are just making this up. There are facts, documented cases, to even where I forget what the man's name was, but there was an investigation. They actually had an investigation on the Smithsonian, and it proved that these scientists and these people within this organization were being very malicious and were doing what they could to try to get these individuals removed.
It's propaganda. I mean, they have to word things in a certain way. There's certain catchwords or certain words that are like kryptonite to them. One being intelligence. They hate information. They hate the word design. They hate consciousness. You know, consciousness can't be, the cause for anything. It's got to be a material accident. So there's lots of catchphrases and words that really, get them riled up. And so big science, whatever you want to call it, peer review, it's overboard to call them like the Third Reich, but because there's probably no killing involved, but the Third Reich had a massive propaganda machine. And so that's pretty much on par of what science is, and it's why I don't trust science generally, today's science. I love the scientific method if it's actually engaged in properly, but today's science only allows certain data, and quite honestly only allows certain scientists pretty much in the club. So they're in a way they're engaging in their own natural selection, where they select out all the contrary data and contrary evidence, contrary wording.
That's why I personally think that's
Go ahead, Chu.
You can go ahead, Antonio. Go ahead.
I was just about to say it, but come on, you're just a bunch of paranoid, crazy creationists and intelligent design proponents. You just peddling the conspiracy and nonsense.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just a bunch of tinfoil, clueless people.
Yeah, all they'd have to do to prove me wrong or prove us wrong is to, I mean, if they're going to be truly neutral, they would have a wing of the more Darwinian slant of people, and then they'd have a wing of the creationist or ideas people, and they would let them all compare notes, all bounce ideas off of each other, and do it that way. Have two different camps or three, and yeah, let things sort out. Let them peer review. Let everything go through peer review. To let people on the peer-reviewed board from all sides. That's what they would do if they were really neutral. Let's be honest. But
they're not.
When
they're
we're
not.
honest, they're not neutral.
Yeah, what they do is what's been happening the last 150, 160 years or so is that all other alternative views on science that are dealing with the origins of things have been removed, and evolution has replaced them. So what's happening is that generations before us have become indoctrinated to accept these ideas and these views. You don't hear them talking about creationism, or when you do, like Pillbox showed the other day, it's teaching you how to refute creationism. That's what they basically do in some of these college textbooks. They don't have it where they're offering both cases honestly. They're showing the information and letting people, objectively consider them. They're leading people in a direction, and the only way that I can see us really fighting back is not by trying to convince these scientists, because these scientists they're very thick-headed. They're very hard pressed to try to keep this theory alive. How it's going to happen is by getting a hold of the younger generation and teaching them both sides and helping them to understand what the information is really showing, so that the next generation hopefully will knock this nonsense out of the way, because the data doesn't support it like they're claiming. It really doesn't support it like they're claiming. And we can sit over here and talk about the information and talk about the data that conflicts with what a lot of these people are talking about, but if you got somebody that is got such a strong foundation on these evolutionary views, no matter what you say to them, they're not going to listen to you for what you're actually saying.
Well, I can foresee what they would say to my prior comment about creationists or ideas being involved in the scientific community, and I could foresee them saying, "Oh, well, creation and ID is not science." But then I would come back and say, evolutionism or Darwinism or naturalism, when it comes to the innovation of things, the origin of things, the origin of biology, the origin of physiology, anatomy, everything that is a part of us and a part of all the different organisms in the biosphere, all these body parts and features, when it comes to their innovation or origin, naturalism is just every bit as non-scientific as ID or creationism is, or miracles, or whatever you want to call it. And so the fact that organisms change is not disputed. I mean, as a creationist, my particular belief is that organisms have a built-in creative capacity to change. Individuals do. And that's the extent of what we see throughout the biosphere, is individual organisms changing, and then some of these are heritable to future generations. But when it comes to the innovation of stuff, like we're saying, I mean, evolution doesn't have a viable mechanism, and so ultimately we're all in the same boat in a way, because it all really is mysterious when it comes right down to it. So the claim that creationists or ideists are any less scientific than them is just patently false.
Well, what do y'all think about when they try to appeal to the fact that peer review isn't biased against intelligent design or creationism, because even Christians out there are evolutionists? What would y'all say to that?
Well, I mean, those are two different topics. I mean, yes, there are Christian evolutionists out there, but peer review, just like True was talking about with the guy who probably was an evolutionist, simply used the language. I forgot what it was. Was it design something with a hand? But just using the wrong language, even as an evolutionist proponent, can get you in hot water, maybe even fired. So you've got to use the right jargon to even exist and keep a job. Like True was saying, these people got you know, people from the higher authorities came down on this guy, and I don't know what happened to him, but if he still has a job or not. But
well, the interesting thing about it actually is that for those Chinese individuals and those Asians that published this article, and the experts that were criticizing it and the publishers and so on, some of the commenters were making remarks like this, that retraction is not enough. And the way that they were wording it seemed like they wanted more action than just having the article retracted. So what are you trying to say? You think that they should lose their job for that's the type of discipline that they should receive for mentioning a creator?
They're wanting to set a precedent. You know, that's it. You make an example out of somebody, right? So nobody in science dares. So somebody else anywhere else in the scientific community will see this and not dare make that mistake. So it's what it sounds like. They're trying to, if that's true, it sounds like they're trying to make an example out of them.
Oh yeah, it's true, and I'll give you a link for it right now. Maybe we could look through some of these comments because I think they're worth looking through, just seeing the reaction. Give me 1 second.
But you know, evolutionists and I was just gonna say they're highly intolerant. They're highly intolerant individuals, and that's true on these hangouts. You know, True has experienced it just as much as I have. They're intolerant not only of our position. Oh, there goes True. But they're intolerant of us voicing it, and so that's why when we voice it or try to, they so often talk over us in mass. Because there he is. Because they are so intolerant, and so it's you know, for a worldview that trumpets tolerance, you know, in different areas of life, you know, how creationists or Christians are so intolerant about people's lifestyles and behaviors. It's just, I just find it highly ironic how they don't even want our side spoken. They'd probably, you know, like in radio, not to drive this totally off the cliff, but they're trying to get talk show radio people who are conservative either off the air or they're trying to make them present both sides because talk radio is dominated by conservative talk show hosts. It's no different with these people in science and hangouts, and it goes all the way from the top to the bottom. Dawkins is highly intolerant. Steve McRae's highly intolerant. You name it, they're all intolerant, and they all you know, they interrupt. They're often vulgar. They're often you know, just not always, but often it happens that way.
Yeah, I mean, we can only imagine a world in which creationists / intelligent design proponents were like in charge of peer review, and if it was that kind of world, it would be absolutely unfair to the evolutionists, and they know it. Like, we just theoretically imagine that sort of world, or let's say we had like kind of a test to see, you know, intelligent design scientists and creationists like dominate peer review for like, let's say, I don't know, like a year. We just have like a test, right? And you know, we kind of see where science goes from that. They would not see that in the least bit fair, and I think it's safe to state the exact same thing when you have scientists dominated by just one group of people who think one thing. It's unfair, obviously, but they'll never admit to that. They'll, you know, just try to go all day, you know, you just paranoid. But come on, man, if you want to be honest here, if it was dominated by one group or the other, it's going to seem like it may shift one way or another. And here's the thing, when I first came on here, I was actually honest about where I stood. It was like, I tend to lean towards scientists who are educated, who seem to support intelligent design and creation. I wasn't trying to hide, you know, my personal bias behind that. I just think, you know, people just need to be honest, man. That's all I say.
Well, I would say what you're saying, if ideas were in charge of science or in charge of peer review or you know, for a year, I would dare say that the output would be much more excellent. It'd be a much higher quality of science. And I was going to bounce this off True. You know, I think probably Tompkins is he's probably, being in his position. You know, he's one of the few creationists in his position. But I think he's going to make darn sure of the facts of what he's saying are actually true before he comes out and makes a video like what he has, because he knows that he's going to be on the hot seat, and if he's not right, he's going to be demolished, and the evolutionists will demolish his reputation. But on a different note, you know, going back to what I just said, I think the ideas in general would crank out a much higher quality product, science product, because if you do a little search on Google, there's a giant problem in the scientific community now of just really crappy and sloppy science work. In fact, I think on Google, or there's a story with the title something like 50% of all science papers are probably wrong, and that's just, there's several of these different types of paper or articles like this that just basically are showing how peer review is, it's not doing its job, but also that the scientists themselves are biased. They do sloppy work. They have lots of things that influence them, like promotions, money, prestige, trying to get their name out there, trying to make a splash, because that's where all the money is. You know, you make a splash and you make more money. So there's a lot of things driving science that aren't necessarily healthy if you want a bottom line that's true, if you're looking for truth.
Jane turns gym time with off.
Anyway, that's all I was going to say.
Yeah, so can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah.
This is the article I wanted to show, and as I was linking this article in the comment section, I believe it was Christopher Hitchlap, he said that it always comes down to controversy. No, I think with us, unlike you guys, I think it always comes down to facts. And here's something that I'm going to read to you guys right now. It's a scientific paper which says that the human hand was designed by a creator sparks controversy. It says, a recent scientific paper on the movement of the human hand has faced strong criticism for referring to a creator throughout. The paper, titled Biomedical Characteristics of Hand Coordination and Grasping Activities of Daily Living, was written by a team of 4 researchers, 3 from Huzhong University in China, and the other from Worcester Polytech Technique Institute in Massachusetts. Published in the PLOS One journal, the fairly controversial study looked at the mechanics of how we grasp things and involved the measurements of hand movements of 30 participants. However, members of the scientific community have demanded the paper be retracted for its several perceived references to pseudoscientific theory of intelligent design and possibly a divine creator. In the opening sentences, the study, it's claimed that the link between muscles and hand movements is the product of proper design by the creator. It says, later, it says human hand coordination should indicate the mystery of the creator's invention, and concluded by, again, claiming the mechanical architecture of the hand is the result of proper design by the creator. Now look at what some of the people have said. These are some screenshots. It says, thanks PLOS One for feeding the arguments to those that say open access, lower quality. The Creator Gate article is a harmful disgrace. It says, just found out PLOS One published a paper with, quote, evidence of some creator. If not retracted immediately, I will resign as editor. It's a hand coordination should indicate the mystery of the creator. I knew PLOS One wasn't top tier, but really so bad. Twitter.com, and they got some link right over here. So, like, you can see these types of like completely biased remarks that are just like showing where these people, they're not even like interested in it. Like, just to mention a creator, obviously it can't be science. So it says naturally Naturally, the multiple references to intelligent design in a reputable journal like PLOS One have stoked anger in the scientific community, and many people, including researchers who work as editors for the publication, are now calling for it to be retracted.
I mean, can you hear the tone in these people, man? It's like they don't want to even entertain the possibility that it could be an alternative theory out there at all.
Exactly, and that's the funny thing of all this right here. They talk about where the article is being published for, but the behavior of these people is that they don't want anything to be published. They don't want anything about a creator being mentioned in any of the articles, and so it's like. Give us an article for intelligent design. Show me a peer-reviewed article for intelligent design, while making sure no articles for intelligent design gets published.
Exactly right. That needs to be recorded and played over and over and over. What you just said.
So it says that the paper's authors appear to acknowledge their mistakes in the comment section, saying the references to the creator. Now, this is what's really interesting right here. The references to the creator were down to translation errors rather than the belief in intelligent design. Other comments on the paper called its publication unacceptable and criticized the sloppy job done by the reviewers and the editors. Some scientists said the journal should be boycotted unless amends are made. Now, why? Because it was concluding a creator. Now, let's go up here and let's go to the original article. Hopefully, they still have this here because it's been a few months since I've looked at this.
Let me just add one thing real quick. Is if the author, the researcher, would have said that it evolved, as opposed to the creator, it would have been just fine. So even though there's no evidence in that, there's no mutations, for example, listed or referred to in this paper that would have caused the evolution of this hand, but just not knowing anything about the evolution of this hand, even though that's true, even if you would have said the word evolved, it would have been fine and scientific. Somehow it was scientific, just to assert that and put that word in there.
Just a quick interjection here. Hey, Odin, if we can't hear you or whatever, you might want to try to come in and out the room to kind of reset things. That might help the audio issue you're having.
Or speak now and see if we can. I don't know. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Try going out and come back in.
Can you guys see this? Okay.
Yeah.
I hope everybody was holding their thought on that last part that I just read. Now, they're saying that they made a mistake. Now, I want you to think about why. If you look at some of these comments right over here on the side, you click on this comment, where the readers, they had commented on this, they were basically calling for the publishers and those involved to lose their jobs, basically. I want you to read why they retracted it. This is what the PLOS One said. They said, following publication, readers raised concerns. The readers raised concerns about language in the article that makes references to a creator. Now, this is the reason why, because it was referencing a creator, and about the overall rationale of the findings of the study. Upon receiving these concerns, the PLOS One editors have carried out an evaluation of the manuscript and the pre-publication process, and they sought further advice on the work from experts in the editorial board. The evaluation confirmed concerns with the scientific rationale. What's the rationale? Referencing the creator, and that the creator was behind it, obviously. Presentation and language were not adequately addressed during peer review. Consequently, the PLOS One editors consider the work cannot be relied upon and retract this publication. The editors apologize to the reader for the inappropriate language in the article and the errors during the evaluation process. Now, I want you to pay attention to this. What did this say right over here? It was done by a couple of individuals from from China, and where's it right over here so I can highlight it? A team of researchers, 4 from China and some others from Massachusetts. Okay. On top of this, it was evaluated before it went through the peer review process. So you're going to tell me that they're going to mix up the language. Somebody who's obviously can speak English and work with them, somebody who's from Massachusetts working with this team of researchers, and the team translating an entire article in English is screwing up on the language being used. Now, obviously, if you read the comments and the way that people were reacting, they were worried about losing their job. That's the reason why they're backpedaling and they're saying, well, we messed up on the language. Clearly, you're not going to mix something up like that, like the creator being behind it, the divine creator making this happen. You're not going to mix up words like that. That's not the type of mistakes that you're going to make, and that's not the type of mistakes that should be happening if it's being peer-reviewed. When it's peer-reviewed, they have a team of experts looking through this and evaluating it. And if it, that's not, you don't miss those types of mistakes. Somebody actually in the reader comments, and I'm going to try to look through it right now so maybe I can find it, is actually a scientist, and he pointed out, that was criticizing it, that he doesn't even believe what the excuse is, because this guy's an evolutionist, I'm assuming, because that mistake obviously it can't happen during peer-reviewed. You're not going to mix up that type of language. You're not going to put out a whole article in English and then one word here or there where it's clearly referencing a creator, and the way that it's referencing a creator, you messed up.
So wait, there was actually an honest scientist in the comments who said that there was something wrong with what they were saying. He's saying that it was indeed, beyond any kind of reasonable explanation that a screw up like that would have happened, right?
Oh, I'm sorry. Can you repeat that? Were you responding to me or?
Yeah, I was just saying that. So there was a scientist who was reading this retraction statement, and you saying that the scientist was like, it was beyond a reasonable possibility that that kind of mistake would have happened, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, even this one right here, there are other comments that. From different people that were saying, well, this couldn't have possibly been missed. And this guy says right here, I think the editors should urgently provide a detailed explanation about the origin of the disaster. And it's like they're having a nervous breakdown, calling it a disaster, and inappropriate language saying that a creator was behind it. It's ridiculous. They're over-exaggeration. But it says, what happened with the academic editor in charge of the manuscript? He's saying that retraction isn't enough. The fact that an article was published through, it wasn't enough that they retract the article and they reward it. They think that they want to know what happened to the academic editor that allowed it to go through for using these types of wordings.
I agree that retraction ain't enough. We need to know the source of the problem, and I think we have every right to know. We should be entitled to know what the heck went wrong.
Yeah. So did he read the paper, or at least the abstract? How was it possible that nobody on the editorial board noticed the problem before publication?
Listen, man, it's simple. Whoever translated their work translated it as as it was written, and it was published as it was translated.
Well, yeah.
This whole thing is happening now because a bunch of people, scientists or not, are just simply angry about the fact that, well, it's not riddled with catchphrases like evolve, and it had words like design or create and stuff like that, and they see it as some form of, I guess, attack against evolution or against science, or they see it as non-scientific because it doesn't possess those words.
They're Yeah, it comes down to the fact that they're intolerant of alternative views that that disagrees with theirs. That's what it all comes down to. Views that are like creation. I mean, that's directly the opposite of the claims that they're making of some non-intended process. This is something that they will not tolerate in any language defending this, or any articles trying to defend that or being published to defend this. This is what they're calling a disaster. This is what they're calling inappropriate language. And I mean, there's really nothing else you can say about it. I think that the abstracts and the retraction, everything is self-explanatory. There's no way that they could have made that mistake. The reason why they're saying that it was a mistake, we didn't mean to say creator, a creator did it, or divine creator was behind it, was because, again, you can clearly see by the reactions that they were in fear of losing their job. That's what the problem was. They were in fear of losing their job, and they were hoping that if they could blame it on these other members of the team that were from China, and hopefully they wouldn't focus in on these people who were speaking English and the people who the editors who translated it. Maybe we can blame it on a translation error and get away with it. And even the scientists who were in the comments, they were pointing out, this can't happen. There's no way they could have missed this type of mistake.
Yeah, it was just published as was, and that's it. And they can't look at these Chinese scientists and say, hey, they're creationists or whatever, because they're clearly not. You know, they just expressed on, you know, what they've researched, and that's just simply it. You know, if they realize that something has the appearance of design or is designed, they're going to call it as it is. It has nothing to do with their beliefs or anything like that. And you see, that's the issue that I have in general with science, is that, like, if science was blind to a person's personal belief, it wouldn't, you know, I'm pretty sure we wouldn't be having these discussions right now. And I'm pretty sure we'll probably be discovering a lot more things about the origins of life. You never know. But that's not the case. Like, it's really not the case. If science was open, then everyone would have a voice. Every scientist would have a voice, you know. And these guys, people who wants to publish their findings that might, you know, support something of an intelligence, you know, they'll be able to do it without fear of losing their jobs or any repercussions.
But the problem is they arrogantly point out time and time again, well, there is no competing theory, there is no debate, and they'll say that ad nauseum over and over and over again, and the arrogance just runs so deep within these people. They don't want to entertain anything else. These people are not about legit science whatsoever.
They tell us that they tell us that there are no articles for intelligent design. Where are the articles from intelligent design? Well, at the same time, making sure that no articles get published for intelligent design, then smirk at us right afterwards and ask us, okay, where are the articles for intelligent design? Yeah. So it's just a ridiculous game that's being played to try to silence the opposition, try to keep all information that disagrees with the, you know, these flows of ideas, you know, away, and it's ridiculous. And I think it's very, I mean, you have to be an idiot to not see the types of games that are going on.
And at the same time, they play themselves off as neutral. You know, they try to convince the public that they're neutral and just looking for the truth. You know, they're just looking for the evidence. They're following the evidence where it leads.
Ha 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 ha. Yeah, it's funny because there's a couple different scientific methods that you can use to, you know, prove or falsify, right? And it doesn't matter which method you use, as long as the implication doesn't align with theirs. You know, they don't see it as science, even if it's, you know, the evidence is like blatantly right in front of their faces. You know, even it disturbs me, and it's just this naturalistic paradigm that they have, this closed paradigm, and it just seems blatantly dogmatic to me. Almost.
I can't understand why they constantly use people who are Christians and evolutionists as their scapegoats. That really, 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 like, grinds my gears, so to speak. They appeal to these people to get around their obvious bias. That be just like using agnostic intelligent design proponents to try to explain away any bias if it ever happened, by intelligent design proponents. Like, no, you can't just use people who may not have a certain theological position to get around your clear bias. You can't do that.
Yep, and I mean a person's beliefs or lack thereof has nothing to do with with the science itself. If the
That's
science
the problem. They'll say
points to
that,
something.
but that's the problem, though. That therein lies the problem. They'll say personal beliefs have nothing to do with it, but they'll constantly appeal to certain people with personal beliefs.
Yep. I mean, it's disturbing to me, and it's funny because I was gaming a couple days ago, and one of my buddies, he's an atheist. He's not like one of those militant hardcore guys. You get what I'm saying? But like, he's more chill, and we can sit and talk about these things. And he sat and we were just there talking, and he just randomly asked me, what's intelligent design or whatever. So I explained it to him. So he asked me if I could show him, peer-reviewed papers or whatever. So I said, okay. And I pulled up a few. So he's like, okay, this is pretty interesting. I was like, yeah. So, he asked if there weren't any more or whatever. So I said, well, there's not really a lot because, whenever a scientist try to publish a paper, I mean, I said, this is what happens. And, I pulled up a couple articles and showed him a couple examples, of what will happen if you even mention the word design, and he was disturbed because he was of the mindset that, that wasn't an issue, that your beliefs didn't matter. You get what I'm saying? So it disturbed him to really see what's really out there, and I explained the whole paradigm to him, and I mean it's just disturbing. It's funny because when the first time I met him, he asked me, how did I come around to believing in a God or whatever, right? And I explained to him that, I wasn't, I guess, indoctrinated or whatever. I found that myself, in a way that I didn't expect to find it. It was the thing that I love to do the most, which is read, study, and find out how things work. That's how I've always been as a kid, and that led me to God. So, for me, in learning how things work, that's what led me to God. But it's like me being in that mindset, and I'm seeing so much people being stifled, basically, creatively, in a creative way in the scientific community. It just disturbs me, and that's probably one of the main reasons why I don't really focus that much on science anymore, as much as how I love it. I just prefer to look into, mainly IT stuff and, engineering stuff for the most part.
And then they like to mock intelligent design and creation of scientists and be like, well, they start their own journals, as if it's a bad thing for people to have that kind of diversity in science. Yeah, as if it's that bad to have that kind of diversity in science to where people can have their own groups and sects with certain journals they want to publish. And I mean, honestly, if they really find it that big of a problem, then compete with them in the arena of ideas and like compete with these people in debates, and but then they'll try to be like, well, debates are just for entertainment. They're really not for
No.
scientific progress, and I completely disagree with that. Like, what do y'all think about that? About when they say that debates are really for entertainment and not for scientific progress? I completely disagree with that.
And going off that segue, thank you for that one. Is Drew still here? I'm not completely finished with the document yet, but I have come up with a debate format that I think everyone would like. It's not too long. I don't think it'll be too boring. I think it'll be something everyone on both sides would appreciate.
What were you talking about doing?
Yeah, so I was suggesting that we do have debates, like formal debates, instead of, I guess, just regular hangouts where you can probably have a shouting match with each
Sometimes
other.
they do that sometimes.
So what I was saying is, or suggesting I should say, is that we would have structured debates. It could be team, like maybe a 2-on-2 thing. That was what was suggested first, but it could be, a 1-on-1 thing. And I decided I'm gonna look into, structures and stuff like that. Different types of debates and stuff like this. And it'll be had on neutral grounds, basically. So, along with a bunch of studying and work, whatever little time I have, I did some research and I kind of put something together. So I don't know if Drew can hear me.
Yeah, I don't know about True, but I'm not much onto formal debates myself. I mean, I'm more into conversational debates, but it's just me. But True may be interested in that.
I don't mind, man. I don't care. I really. My thing is that it depends on the person. Like if it's somebody that have discussions with like so many times in the past, and I know that their viewer base isn't going to listen to anything I say, or they aren't going to listen, I might like be skeptical of that. But I mean, I never have like a definite 100% no. I won't debate somebody, talk with somebody. So. I mean, like, for example, Steve, we've only talked with each other like a couple times. I would like for him to come into a room and talk to me about some of these topics, like in chemistry or molecular biology, but he simply won't come into a room, so
I'm not gonna lie,
I don't know who you would have in mind for me to debate. That's just
he said he will help me to get people once I'm finished getting the document together, because I want it to look, I guess, professional. So whoever sees it would be interested. You get what I'm saying, and see this is something that we're serious about. So if you guys don't mind, would you like to hear the format basically, and I guess just the timing of each session? So first in the debate you'll have your introductions, right? The introduction is going to last 5 minutes. 2 minutes and 30 seconds allotted to each debater, right? Then number 2, you have opening statements that will last 10 minutes, 5 minutes per debater, right? And then for number 3, you're going to have constructive speeches and rebuts. Now during this session, basically, it would last 30 minutes, right? And each debater would get 5 minutes, 5 minutes each, right? And during that period, you'll be able to pull up your articles, pull up your videos, pull up your pictures, to prove your point, right? Then you have cross-examination or crossfire, right? And this is where you'll definitely sit and have that conversation. Now the differences between the crossfire and the constructive speeches or rebuttals is that you won't be able to use any material that you brought to the debate. This is where your knowledge is going to come in, basically, right? And after that's finished, then you can have a Q&A session, right? And this is where you can take questions from the people who are watching, and both you guys can answer questions and reply to the answers that was given by each other.
Yeah, I've told people that I'd be willing to have a debate with them or talk with me about things, but they all make excuses. What's his name? Heavy Hauler. He won't come into a room and have a discussion with me, but he likes to fill my comments with, "Oh, you've been disproven already," all that other nonsense, and so many other people that do the same thing, and just it's like pulling teeth trying to get them into a room and having a debate or a discussion. The other people who will say that they are willing to have a discussion or they want to have a discussion, they'll comment and run their mouth in the outside live chat. But when I have a room open like this, they won't come in and have a discussion. So I mean, even if no matter what it is, it seems like it's very difficult to try to get people inside of a room to talk with me. So yeah. I think that's just what the problem is. But AV just came in. What's up, AV? What do you got to say about what's been said?
He said nothing.
Yeah.
Well, true. If I can, I feel you on that. Oftentimes, when I post a video regarding something more along the lines of scriptural exegesis and stuff, for instance, let's say we're talking about slavery or an alleged contradiction or something like that in the Bible. Oftentimes we get the atheists leaving these keyboard warrior-like comments in the side chat or below. But when I do my Thank God for Atheism hangouts, hardly anybody comes in to validate their claims regarding these issues here. And that's why, I could totally relate to everything that you just said, regarding these people who are just arbitrarily saying that you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong, but yet they don't want to give any ideas of why or how you're wrong, and they don't want to come into a hangout, so they want to just try to use an excuse and say, well, I already proved that you're wrong. Why? Well, because I wrote it in the chat. I said, well, don't you think that we need more explanation for these things? But then they want to use that as an excuse to say, well, you cut people off, you talk over people, that's why I don't want to join a hangout with you. Yeah, it's a bunch of BS.
Exactly. Here's my thing.
You go ahead, Antonio.
No, it's cool. Go ahead.
Yeah. So he's that's what I call a keyboard warrior, keyboard hero. These are people who talk a lot of smack from behind the keyboards in their mom's basement, but they don't have the courage or the testicular motivation to
testicular motivation
to come into a hangout and defend their position.
But here's my thing, brothers. If you're gonna be talking smack and whatnot, here's the thing. If I'm gonna be looking at somebody's video, right? If I'm going to go to their room, either I'm going to go into their room and defend what I'm saying, or I'm not going to say anything in the chat at all. That's what I feel. If I say anything in the chat at all, it may be a few comments, and then I'll try to join the room and then engage the people inside the room. But I won't go to somebody's channel and sit there talking smack in the chat all day. I don't do that. I don't go to people's channels with no intention of going in their room and just talking smack in their chat. I don't do that. If I'm going over there and I have an issue that I want to talk to them, I'll go in their room and talk about it. But they don't see it that way. Apparently, they like to come over here and troll, but they don't want to come in the room. I'm just saying, if you're going to come over here, then at least attempt to come in the room, or don't come over here at all, one or the other.
Well, and that's why I wanted to say once again to not just the true, but also the Nephilim Free and Tommy. You also you were the three guys. Well, I would say Arcane as well to an extent. Lately, he's been defending this flat Earth theory, but you guys are probably the first people that come to my mind anyway in our Christian community here in G+ that defends the faith on a scientific level. I you know, again, when it comes to the science area of science, man, I can't, you know, I can't get into these conversations with anybody. But I am learning a lot, especially from you, True. Don't think that your video rants are futile or arbitrary or anything like that. They are being heard by guys, simpletons like myself, and we are learning. So keep up the good work, man, and
Amen.
don't stop. Same with you, Tommy. Yeah.
Well, you know, Beckel, we all have different gifts that we've been given, and so you know, same goes to you on the you know, the thing that you do, because I listen to a lot of them. So God bless you, and because you fill a niche that's definitely needed. You know, that I couldn't do that stuff that you do. So anyway, you do a great job with what you do. So I wouldn't worry about not being into science, because we all got our own little thing that we do.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I completely agree with Brother Tommy. That's why I came on here to join you brothers in the G Plus community to do my end on the abortion topic, because that's what I'm the best at. Like,
Yeah.
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 Yeah, and Antonio, you're an answer to prayer, man, because you know, I've been asking the Lord to bring more recruits, if you will, you know, to this community, and it's happening. It's not just you, but it's other believers I can think of right now.
And it's good to get the abortion thing on the table too, because I've long thought that, man, of all the issues, I find that to be one of the most important. I mean, the sanctity of life is right up there with some of the most important issues, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that Antonio's here to carry that flag, because I'll be right there with him too.
That's awesome, man. I appreciate that, man. May God be glorified, man.
Yeah.
Is Steven in here? In the chat or something?
So is this guy, what's his name, who just came in? Can I speak? Or he can't speak right now?
Yeah, I think he said he's just gonna be listening.
He's just dipping his toes in the water. It's
Oh,
all
okay.
good. It's all good.
Okay.
The water is nice and warm, bro.
Nice and warm.
So Steve will come in here if you ask him to come in here, Ivy?
Yeah.
I don't
think he's gonna come. I've been asking him for a while to come, and he won't come in.
I could have swore I saw him in the chat or something.
Did you guys talk about the video that you posted earlier, True?
Oh yeah, the video talking about timelines.
Yeah.
Yeah, we started talking about it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So did you have anything to say about it?
I didn't watch the whole thing. Yeah, again, some of it was a little bit over my head. But I just wanted to know more about his position. So he is supporting what you've been saying all along. Is that what the video was about?
Well, yeah, he's not only been supporting what I've been saying all along, but he was bringing up a lot of other information, like long non-coding RNAs, and like that's something that I, had never really heard of before. I've heard it mentioned or talked about before, but I didn't realize that was something that was going on with the chromosome. And he was talking about if this was messed with or if this was tweaked with in any way, then it would be dangerous for the organism. And that in rats or in mice, for example, when they knock it out, it's extremely fatal. So, I mean, trying to picture this happening with some sort of ape and, fusing, at this site, and then this being affected, it seems to be unrealistic.
It's funny because I decided that I was going to start looking into the whole chromosome 2 thing, but then again, I decided I was going to start studying, first find out what the hell chromosomes are specifically, have a general idea, but I wanted to know to get more in depth in my understanding of how they work, you know, before I can even formulate an opinion on that thing. Because when you guys were talking about it, you know, I was like, what the hell are you guys talking about? Like, you get what I'm saying? And it sounded really interesting, and I really, really wanted to know what, you know, what made sense and, you know, who's right from who's wrong. So I also started to look into that as well. But in you know, looking into that, I gotta say, man, the cell is really, really amazing. It's a technological marvel, if you ask me. I don't know. That's just how I see it. I think the only thing that's I guess that I need to really brush up on is just the whole chemistry thing. I've never ever taken chemistry before, so you know, I need to understand these chemical bonds and, you know, their relevance.
Yeah, I've been looking into the chemistry for a while. It was something that I was actually originally interested in, you know, like a long time ago. So I'm realizing I probably need to go back and check out some of the basics that I learned a while ago. Some of the newer chemistry books, they're actually in advanced organic chemistry.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, I started looking into this like, I don't know, like 6 or 8 years ago, and like doing a lot of research in this chemistry stuff. That's, you know, just separate from the great debate stuff. It's just something that I've always been interested in. But I think that chemistry, it's more so of a gateway type of science. I mean, it's, you start to understand chemistry, I think that you'll easily be able to understand other sciences that branch off.
Mm-hmm.
So
It's
I mean,
fun.
if you're interested in looking in that direction, I think that that's the perfect place to go, because it's just awesome.
Okay. Because, like, take for example, I started learning about histone, right, or histone dimers, for example. I think that's the name of them, anyways. And to learn that the DNA molecule essentially just basically wraps itself around these things, and these things are just basically like compacted together constantly to the point, you know, and they basically essentially make up the chromosome, right? And then the chromosome is basically tightly and neatly packed within the nucleus of the cell. And I started reading into the centromeres and the telomeres also. And yeah, those things are also very fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
You know, in terms of their uses, I'm still reading up on that as well. I'm thinking about just straight up just buying a couple online books that I could like maybe read on the computer and on my phone or whatever, to really get a deeper understanding of these things.
Well, you know what? Yeah, that's actually what I do. I'm actually in the process of probably going to order a new molecular biology book. Looks like looks like it might actually be very useful in the future. But yeah, I mean, if I think like if you're looking for information that's gonna be more helpful for the great debate and you're wanting to learn on specific topics, probably something in molecular biology, that would be great. You know, that's
Yep.
that's to me, that's like useful information to have in the back of your mind. That's just my personal opinion. That's where I think it's the most relevant. Molecular biology, maybe genetics or something like that, or biochemistry.
Oh yeah, and I mean,
I actually noticed that. I notice actually that a lot of people here on YouTube in this great debate community, they mainly stay on areas of taxonomy, you know, just like some basic biology and biology like that, you know, that you know, monophyletic clades and so on, those types of things were, you know, they're pretty basic, but
Yeah.
not too many people they get into the end of the molecular biology, the biochemistry, and I think that's probably one of the most important areas to go in, especially if you're going to talk about things like abiogenesis or like early Earth, because it helps you to understand better, the mechanisms at a fundamental level, how they interact and so on. So, like, that's just my personal opinion. I think that's probably the best area to go in, probably molecular biology or biochemistry.
Yeah, and it's funny too because I am studying for something else for my certification, my CompTIA certification in cloud security, and that within itself is kind of a pain. But and I'm also kind of writing a book too as well, so I have a lot of stuff going on in my brain.
Man, true. I saw that huge book, that huge biochemistry book you had a while back. Like, man, I was like, dang, that thing has to be like an inch and a half, 2 inches thick or something. That thing was gigantic.
Well, I've got several books, and I think that I'm probably more up to date with probably the molecular biology and biochemistry. That's just because that's more what I've been reading into lately. I mean, I put away, some of the other stuff. I mean, people used to hear me talk about, cyclic structures and so on, like a while back when I was talking about organic chemistry, but I honestly don't really get into that anymore. I haven't really talked about that in like two and a half years or so. So some of that stuff I've actually started to forget, and I haven't realized that I've been forgetting about it till people have started bringing some of these things up recently. But yeah, but the biochemistry, I mean, like some of the reading that I've been looking at, I mean, it's really, really interesting. I think it starts to open your eyes to a lot of stuff. Once it starts clicking and you start realizing what some people are talking about, it's like, whoa, like, there's no way this evolved.
Yeah, what would you recommend for laymen like me as a starting point to learning this stuff, the most effective and efficient way?
Sorry, what did you say?
Oh, I just said, what would you recommend for laymen like me to learn this stuff in the most effective and efficient way as a starting point?
Do you know, like, I guess the basic stuff, like parts per cell, like the organelles and stuff like that?
Oh, like stuff like
Oh,
the nucleus and
Yeah, like
cell
what they
wall
all
and
do and stuff like
flagellum and
that.
things like
I was
that.
wondering, yeah, what do you mean, like the little organelles? Are you talking about the book, the reference, or something?
Yeah, I know
Yeah.
about things like that, like
Oh, okay.
just building off of stuff like that to really grasp these issues on a deeper level.
Well, I would say, yeah, looking into just like the structures of like, like the fundamental structures of how things interact, like you guys have heard me mention before, like just how DNA reacts with the helicase or the Okazaki fragments, how that ends up happening, just all of these different mechanisms, how they all interact with each other. There's different machine parts that all unitedly do a specific job. So it's not like one specific job that's doing it, that's doing its own thing. There's several different components that all interchangeably work together, and that's what I find is interesting. And when you start looking at things, on the level of just biochemistry, it's insane. I mean, like you guys have heard me bring up, for example, with signal transduction, right? You can have a ligand dock with a G protein, and it'll change its shape and release what is it called, an alpha subunit. Then another bond of the protein that you call adenylene cyclase gets formed an ATP that will drop off two phosphates. It'll make it a monophosphate. You got so many different reactions happening, and all of this is important for a job for the cell. Same thing that you guys heard me talk about before with the cytochrome oxidase, taking in 4 electrons from the oxygen atom. and then for water or for FADH2, that gets converted to FAD. All these chemicals, you have these different complex protein structures along the mitochondrial matrix, but these protein structures that act as pumps, they shoot these chemicals out, and they come back out. They come back through the try to get back through the mitochondrial matrix, and because they try to get back through, it acts as sort of a pump. It acts as a pump, just like you would see, for example, with a Pelton turbine, where you see the steam between the blades. This helps to produce energy between the blades. Then you got the thing turning, making mechanical energy to be converted into to electrical energy. With ATP synthase, you're seeing the gradients go back and through the complex, through the 10 or 15 different protein subunits at the top of the shaft, go back through, make the mechanical energy. Well, I guess it would be more so proton motive force, and then you got energy for the cell. It's a turbine. So all of these independent, specific chemicals and protein structures all unitedly work together to give the cell an overall function, just like any other machines. So I don't know if you guys were following what I was saying there. All I'm trying to say is, like, each and every different part of the cell, people talk about, oh, well, it's just chemicals. When you really get into it, yeah, chemistry is involved, but there's so many other physical interactions that almost directly mirror machines that people build. And once you start to get involved with it and you start to understand how things operate in biochemistry, on a molecular level, it's insane. The parallels between what you're seeing inside of the cell and what you see from our own creation.
Yeah, it's say for example, like there's one thing that really caught my attention, and I think it was called the lipid bilayer, and I was referring to the one that surrounds the nucleus, right? That basically keeps the nucleoplasm, the chromosomes, and all that stuff inside, right? But the interesting thing about it that I was trying to figure out was, how does it interact with the ribosomes like so well? How does it determine what goes in, what goes out, and stuff like that? That's what I've been trying to figure out, because during the studies I just kind of came across it, and I'm like, so what's the difference between the layer when it's surrounding the nucleus, the cell's nucleus, than when it's basically outside the cell, basically when it's holding everything in the cell? You get what I'm saying? That's something that I'm trying to figure out as well.
Oh yeah, but we don't even really have to just get into all this, upper level complex type of things. It's even a basic. I mean, I remember when I was in junior high, probably earlier than that, when I started learning about the little organelles. I mean, the endoplasmic reticulum, the vacuoles, all of these different mechanisms, the Golgi body, and so on. I mean, they all unitedly have a specific job, but it's very interesting, because it seems like the deeper and deeper you get into it, from the smaller you go, things are not becoming less and less complex. They become more and more complex, and there's more and more interchangeable parts, to the point to where I think they've mapped over 1 billion pieces of machinery inside of the cell working together. Some of these things where we just have you guys ever seen where they've shown footage of the cells dividing, and it's pulling the chromosomes apart and so on? It looks like just a gobbledygook of mess. But what's actually happening right there is there's a lot of coordination. I mean, there's a lot of coordination. There's a lot of signaling going on in the cell, information being passed back and forth to let the cells know to pull it at this direction, to move it in this direction, not to pull it too hard, not to, there's so much information going on right there, where the cell has almost, this language to where it's telling itself how to do it the right way. It's amazing. When you start reading into some of these things in biochemistry, and you start reading these books, and things start to click. after a while, you want to put the book down and you just want to praise God, because it's like this is right in your face. It's like, how can anybody not see all of these things working and not conclude a creator was behind it? So that's why I'm just saying, I know I went on a little bit of a rant there, but that's why I'm saying, like, I think that biochemistry, it's the perfect place to go if you're trying to look, for evidence of God's creation. Perfect place to go. Chemistry, I think it's a gateway science for anybody just basically trying to look into different information. Once you learn a little bit about chemistry, I think that it helps you to understand other sciences a little bit better, because it's like a gateway science.
See, sometimes I wish you guys would have more philosophical conversations because we just discuss the issues with, one side either moving the goalposts or not giving the other side the opportunity to post anything or whatever. But it's like with philosophy, it's just sheer knowledge and common sense and what makes more sense. It's the best arguments. With this, you essentially have to. Everything is very specific. Does that make sense? Like, you need to know how a particular protein works, what set of genes, like what exactly they code for, basically. You get what I'm saying? What will happen if you mess with these nucleotide combinations or whatever. So it's very specific. Not that that's a bad thing. I like that, but it's specific and there's just so much to take in, and
Well, I'd like to say something to somebody actually in the comment section. Heavy Hauler said, with as much information as TE has been given, he should go over that material, but he's hung up on biased views of science. No, I'm hung up on the facts and the information. People giving me information like the Robertsonian translocation that has never ever been observed to produce a telomere fusion. The Robertsonian translocations, this is a known fact, are only known to produce centromere fusions, and that's the bottom line. If somebody's claiming that a Robertsonian location is the same thing that happens inside of the chromosome 2 supposed fusion site, they have to give evidence of a Robertsonian translocation producing the exact same thing. One cannot just say that that all translocations are the same thing, like other people have been basically trying to say. If it's a translocation event, well, therefore I should use my imagination and assume, well, therefore this telomere fusion was a known event. Telomere fusions that happen inside of living organisms, they're only found in cancerous types of cells. No telomere fusion has ever been known to be a safe telomere fusion, and has never been found in living organisms safely like you see with human beings. There has been no information provided, and here's what I'll tell you, Heavy Hauler. I know that you may think that just because you're in a room like Steve's or some of these other people's hangouts where you have a bunch of people running their mouth about certain things, that they might be right about what they're saying. That's only because myself or other people are not in that room correcting them. That's just the fact. That's the bottom line. Like the things that Sam was bringing up, the things that he was talking about, they were not true, and I presented that at the beginning of this hangout. But I'll tell you what, Heavy Hauler, because you've been commenting on some of my videos, I will let you inside of this room and only you inside of this room. And I'll make sure that everybody in this room is quiet so that we'll be respectful to you. And you can come in and you can provide the supposed evidence that you think is available. How about that, Heavy Hauler?
Oh yeah, I have another question. Okay, so the telomere, it's basically the it's a region. It's a region of repetitive nucleotide sequences at the end of the chromosome, right? And basically, its job is to protect it. It protects it from deterioration or fusion, right? That's the idea behind it. But I guess I guess what I'm trying to understand is like if it's set up that way, how could it even fuse in the first place if it's designed or I guess programmed that way? That's what I've been trying to understand. Like if there's a possibility that it can happen, like what causes it? I've been trying to see if I can look into that, but I kind of set that aside because I realized that there's a bunch of other stuff that I kind of needed to look into as well. Like for example, whenever the chromosome is being copied, right? I need to learn how that particular part of the chromosome is copied. I don't understand that part. I went on, I think it was Khan Academy or whatever, and I was looking into some stuff, and I saw I saw a lot of information, and I kind of sighed, and I went to bed when I was looking into it a little bit more. So that part, I'm a little bit like all over the place on, basically. So I'm getting there. I'm just kind of taking my time. If that makes any sense. So that's one of the main reasons why I'm definitely considering just getting a bunch of textbooks, basically. Getting a bunch of textbooks and just take my time and study and make my notes, so I can figure it out by myself and have a better understanding. But it's the chemistry part that's, heaven's sake, that's the part that's a little bit complicated for me. Gene sequences, those are interesting to me also. Because it kind of reminds me of circuitry.
Can I ask a question to the theists that are in the room? For anybody that's been following the discussion that's been happening back and forth, has anybody heard, and just to be honest, has anybody heard thus far a good criticism of what Tompkins has said?
Yeah, honestly, I don't know if I can, because there's still some parts, at least for me personally, that's kind of hard for me to follow because I'm not really educated in the field. So, but I haven't seen any criticism to. I mean, I've heard people make remarks, but I haven't really thoroughly searched out the reasons why they make these remarks about. What was his name again? What was the name?
Jeffrey Tompkins.
Tompkins. Yeah.
Yeah, I've been wanting people to direct me to some like peer-reviewed rebuttals of things that he said, and from what I know, I mean, I could be wrong on this, but from my understanding, I don't really think there's really any out there.
Yeah, I'm gonna probably end the hangout soon as well, because I started this hangout and I was gonna try to keep it to about an hour, and I think we've been talking a little bit over an hour. But yeah, I mean, I haven't heard anything, and that's just the honest truth. I mean, I really haven't heard any good criticisms whatsoever. I think they've done worse on this chromosome 2 fusion thing than they've done with almost everything else we've talked about. That's just the truth. Mixing up a Robertsonian translocation, that's like a really bad screw up right there. Giving me a 1991 article, which is one of the original claims, as a response to the criticisms that are being directed towards it. That's just like me making a claim right now to you, and using my claim as a defense. So yeah, I haven't heard really a good response.
All right, man. Good hang up, man. Thanks a lot.
All right, man.
All right, guys. God bless. Take it easy, everybody.
God bless you.
Same to you, brother.